Well, good morning and happy Friday. It is Springfield's Morning News, and we've got tons to get to on this Friday at 6:13 now. Let's talk more about integrity of the judiciary. That seems to be a big news story for the day and for the week as we head into next week with the Illinois Supreme Court set to hear a controversial case about no cash bail in Illinois, a state law that was supposed to go into effect January 1st, but the Illinois Supreme Court put that on hold after a Kankakee County court declared that the state law violated the Constitution on several different grounds. But what's been raised in the past couple of weeks here as the Illinois Supreme Court now is ready to take on the gun ban challenge. That's going to be heard in May, but around that, you had questions of Governor J.B. Pritzker being the top defendant in the gun ban challenge case to be heard in May. He's also a top donor to two Illinois Supreme Court justice candidates. Before the November election, they got elected. They're now on the bench of 7. But the governor's not just the top defendant in the gun ban challenge. He's also the top defendant in the no cash bail challenge. So you've got some interesting things that are going to be happening here in the next week or so with the no cash bail challenge being heard in Illinois Supreme Court. Wednesday? So a lot of people are going to be watching closely to see if these two Supreme Court justices, Mary O'Brien and Elizabeth Rochford, are going to be on the bench when they hear arguments in open court about no cash bail and whether or not the law that lawmakers passed violates the state constitution, separation of powers, victims' Bill of Rights, and a variety of other things. So we'll be watching that closely. But I asked several Republicans who were at the State House yesterday about the issue of judicial integrity because they were there championing their bills at the State House to show more ethics, to have lawmakers disclose more about campaign finance, to allow for the legislative inspector general to have more teeth and more power without having to check in with the Legislative Ethics Commission. Trust me, I could give you a symposium on all of the ins and outs of the Legislative Inspector General and the Ethics Commission that's mostly made up of lawmakers that are supposed to police themselves, and they can block investigations from an independent watchdog and so on. So there's a whole host of things there that Republicans want to make sure that they clean up, but it's not just within the legislature. I asked them about integrity and ethics within the judiciary, and you have State Representative Ryan Spain and State Representative Blaine Wilhauer responding to that question to really kind of, again, get to the crux of this issue of Governor J.B. Pritzker being a top donor, not just to, one Supreme Court justice candidate, $1 million, but another Supreme Court justice candidate, another $1 million. So $2 million that Governor J.B. Pritzker's given to Supreme Court justice candidates. And if you recall earlier this week, I asked him if they should recuse themselves in these two controversial cases coming up, and the governor said it's ridiculous to think that, called it right-wing talking points, and seem to try to walk away from the idea that there's concern about this. And even others in various political publications saying that people are making a big deal out of this. Well, I don't know. It's any perceived conflict does indeed brew a conflict, and the perception is important to keep intact because if you don't have trust in the judiciary, that could be bad for our constitutional republic. That's not me saying that. That's independent observers and nonpartisans who are looking at the judiciary saying that they have to be completely above reproach. So here is the question and the response from the state lawmakers, Republicans at the State House, to my question about, judicial ethics.
More asking about campaign contributions going to justices or judges.
Yeah, just like what our governor did recently. It's recently come to light that he gave $2 million basically to two Supreme Court justices that are literally going to be hearing cases, very important cases on the Safety Act and the gun stuff. Yeah, I think that it's important to point out that kind of stuff is inappropriate. It did circumvent the rules by doing that, basically for giving from different entities. The governor should lead by example in those kind of things.
Let me add to that, though, because it's just the perfect opportunity. I can't pass it up. Obviously, there was an enormous amount of money spent in this last election cycle, including in the election of new Supreme Court justices. But remember how we got to this point. Because the legislature worked very deliberately with the cooperation of the governor to gerrymander the judicial maps. After voters came forward, let's remember, 600,000 voters said we need to change how we deliver redistricting in the state of Illinois. Tom Kilbride was the deciding vote to squelch the wishes of those voters. Representative Wilhour is exactly right. We need to have better enablement of citizen-led efforts to have a voice in the say of their government. And so not only then did Tom Kilbride suffer the inability to be not retained for his position, then the Democrats went forward and said, we're going to change the composition of the court system and deliver gerrymandering to ensure the results of this election. So much that we're talking about, the bills that we want to pass, the changes that need to be made, are stifled by the voter disenfranchisement that is delivered by Democrats through gerrymandering, which is the most corrupt and egregious in the entire United States.
So again, that's State Representative Ryan Spain and State Representative Blaine Wilhour reacting to my question about judicial ethics when they were talking about various other ethics reforms that they were hoping to get passed here at the Illinois legislature for the 2023 spring session. So, what happens next when it comes to judicial ethics, we'll watch, of course, next week. But let's hear a little bit from a political observer, longtime political observer, Kent Redfield. I connected with him earlier this week, and I'll share some of his comments about the questions of judicial ethics when donations are involved, and the difference really between elected judges and appointed judges, which there could be concerns there as well. So stay tuned. We'll get to that next here on WMAY. I'm Greg Bishop. It is Springfield's Morning News on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk.
.com, 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk.
Explain the $1 million that you gave to each Supreme Court justices, and should they recuse themselves in two important cases coming up: Safety Act, no cash bail, and also the
I am sure this is something that the right wing is trying to stir up. I know you've written about it. The fact of the matter is I supported candidates who are running all across the board. If you're suggesting that the fact that I gave money to, let's say, the Democratic Party or to the committees that supported candidates means that everybody who received any money has to recuse themselves from anything to do with the state of Illinois, that's ridiculous. And I've certainly never asked anybody to vote a certain way or decide on a case a certain way. I would never do that. I never have. I never will. And these are independent judges, and they didn't go around and campaign on things, that they thought would win my support for them. I believe in them. I supported them like lots of other people did.
Yeah, it's Governor J.B. Pritzker answering a question I asked on Wednesday. And some people are trying to brush off the concerns here, saying that, just the center square is trying to make a big deal out of this. It's obviously a much bigger thing than just one report, as is shown in just how far and expansive this particular issue has gotten. Just from one minute video on Twitter I shared, it's got over 108,000 views, at least impressions, with over 28,000, almost 29,000 actual individual views, unique views to the video. So there's obviously a huge amount of interest in this because we want to make sure that the judiciary is above board. And talking with the Judicial Integrity Project out of Colorado, they say that anytime there is any question of conflict, then there needs to be recusals. And there are ways to go about in maybe enforcing certain types of ethics with judicial inquiry boards, but that's a conversation for another day. I talked with the longtime political professor with the University of Illinois Springfield, Kent Redfield, and I asked him about perceptions of the judiciary, especially when we elect judges and they get campaign contributions. Here's some of what he had to say about this entire issue.
Judges, once they get elected, as any other elected official, a judge is supposed to be representing the law. They're not supposed to be representing constituencies or donors or what have you. But it's, again, when you've got these hugely expensive races, then it's pretty easy for the public to kind of look upon them as Democratic judges or Republican judges or labor-backed judges or conservative judges or, what have you. So, and then, beyond that, even though, judges will tell you, just in general, I don't pay any attention to contributions, I represent the law, people get recruited and win primaries because they resonate with their values, their opinions resonate with whatever party that they're, label they're running under in a partisan primary. And so yeah, I think there's, that's obviously, if people believe that, the judges are representing essentially either a partisan interest or a caste constituency, then that calls into people's minds the legitimacy of the court in general or specific rulings of the court. So, we elect judges in Illinois. They have gotten hugely expensive, and that is just, that's kind of where we are.
So Kent Redfield, he's also very tuned into campaign finance and looks at all those numbers, but he's been around for a long time observing politics, teaching people about politics, especially Illinois politics. And Redfield talked about, listen, even though we elect judges and people have problems with that, there can also be concerns when you have appointed judges as well. There's also lovely, times when technology just wants to be your best friend and hang out with you all week.
If you're getting, if you've got a very liberal governor, Pritzker would appoint someone if he had carte blanche, subject to approval of the state Senate. He would, pick someone who shared his values. And so, to kind of, to isolate or insulate a judge from either their personal feelings or, loyalty to whoever, is the appointing authority, again, you're going to get some bleed over regardless. And then the perception is always there. If you lose a case in front of a judge that got elected with labor money or got appointed by a pro-labor governor, and you're a business group, you're going to blame that you're going to say there was bias. And if the situation's reverse and the labor group loses, they're going to say there was bias. So there's pressure there, and then the perception exists regardless because people are always, that's just human nature.
And then again, that's Kent Redfield, longtime politics professor, kind of talking a bit about, yes, there are perception issues that need to be addressed, especially if recusal is an option as we head into two controversial cases, one to be heard next week by the Illinois Supreme Court dealing with no cash bail, the governor being a top defendant in that case. He's also a top defendant in the gun ban challenge from Macon County that's headed to the Illinois Supreme Court in mid-May. But the governor, not just a top defendant in those two controversial cases, he's also a top donor to 2 Illinois Supreme Court justices on the bench of 7, where before they were elected, he gave them $1 million each. So we'll be watching very closely what happens next week, because it'll be quite revealing if the 2 Supreme Court justices are either in the chamber or not in the chamber during oral arguments about the no cash bail provision. So yeah, lots going to be happening. I hope you guys stay here. We'll update you each and every weekday morning from 6 to 9 on WMA.